In a beautiful neighborhood, there lived Mr. and Mrs. Amadi, a couple deeply in love with each other and the world around them. They were known for their goodness and open hearts, always willing to share their joys, hopes, and dreams with anyone who crossed their path. Despite facing challenges, Mr. and Mrs. Amadi remained steadfast in their faith and optimism, believing that goodness would eventually find its way into their lives. Little did they know, a shadow loomed over their happiness in the form of a wicked neighbor called Mrs. Sandra, who harbored envy and malice in her heart. Unknown to the Amadis, Mrs. Sandra harbored ill intentions towards them, secretly resorting to wicked spiritual practices to thwart any good fortune that came their way. But the Amadis remained oblivious, trusting in the goodness of humanity and God's protection. As misfortune befell them repeatedly, it became a source of concern to the Amadis. The Amadis turned to prayer and fasting, seeking God's deliverance from the unseen forces that seemed determined to sabotage their happiness. Their prayers seemed unanswered, but they continued trusting God until one day they crossed paths with an old man, offering them a revelation that would change their lives forever. The old man revealed to the Amadis the source of their troubles. He told them their very own compound harbored the seeds of their misfortune. He urged them to guard their tongues, to keep their hopes and dreams close to their hearts, and to stop sharing too much information with people, especially their neighbor who Mrs. Amadi took as a very close friend. Taking heed of the old man's words, the Amadis resolved to keep their aspirations and blessings concealed from prying eyes, including those of Mrs. Sandra, who had been a confidant to Mrs. Amadi. Mrs. Sandra noticed that there was a change in behavior of Mrs. Amadi. She will go to her house to gist and get information from her as usual, but Mrs. Amadi will not answer the door. She acted as if she was not around. This continued for like a month before Mrs. Sandra got the message indirectly and stopped going to Mrs. Amadi. Despite Mrs. Amadi's inquiries and feigned interest, Mrs. Amadi went into ghost mode as soon as she discovered she became pregnant again and decided to act that way. Mrs. Amadi kept her pregnancy a secret, shielding herself and her unborn child from harm. Mrs. Sandra finally got to know that so it was because Mrs. Amadi was pregnant. That was why she changed and started acting the way she was doing. She became so angry and furious, but pretended to be happy for her and tried to know when she was expecting her child so that she will prepare her dress from the tailor. But Mrs. Amadi did not lose guard. She still didn't tell her when was her expected date of delivery because she remembered what the old man had told her before then. Months passed and Mrs. Amadi's pregnancy flourished in the safety of secrecy and prayer. With each passing day, their faith grew stronger and their anticipation heightened. Finally, the day arrived when Mrs. Amadi gave birth to twin boys, a miracle born from years of waiting, loss, and unwavering faith. As the cries of their newborn sons echoed through their home, the Amadis felt a profound sense of gratitude to God and joy wash over them. With the blessings of their children, doors of opportunity swung open wide, leading them to a new beginning, relocating to the abroad, where they could build a future free from the shadows of the past. In the end, the Ahmadis understood the power of faith, the importance of discernment, and the necessity of guarding one's tongue, the heart, and dreams from those who seek to do harm. We should learn not to talk too much. And as they embarked on their journey to a brighter future, they carried with them the wisdom bestowed upon them by the old man, forever grateful for his timely intervention and divine guidance. Like, share, and subscribe to get notified to enjoy beautiful stories like this when we upload. Do have a great day and bye for now.